This is a video in a series of videos about how to compose the behavior of units. And in this video, we're going to look at defining unit patterns. And as you know from watching other videos and from watching this set of videos, we don't normally create units the way we've been doing it in this set of videos. We've been going to the script tab and we've been manually editing the script, at least the top part. We don't manually edit down here. This is all done automatically by the command editor. But the composition part we've been doing manually. And as we've said, we don't normally do that. We don't, especially for new users, it might be a little bit intimidating to work with typing in text. And even though you don't have to type it in, it's all done with a mouse still. We don't really teach people to build scenarios by manually editing script. And at Turnitin, we don't create scenarios that way. The way that we do it is using unit patterns. So I'm going to edit this particular, well, I won't edit it. I'm just going to pick the commander and I'm going to just delete it. So I'll remove it here and I remove the entity. And I'm getting an error now, or a warning message, because the shooter is specifying that this unit named Blue Commander is supposed to be its commander, and it doesn't exist in the scenario anymore. So I'm getting this message, but I'm going to fix that. We created that unit, at least the composition of that unit, manually. But the way we would normally do it is just like this. We would say new unit. And we'd pick a unit pattern here called Blue Commander. And it gives us a nice description of what this particular unit does. So I'll double click on that. And I'll choose a name that's the same as what I had it. And I'll hit finish. And boom, that unit got created. So that's a lot faster way to create the unit. And that's the way that we normally create units. So in order to create units that way, so by the way, if you go back and look at the script, it's pretty much the same script that we had before. The script got generated automatically, not only the composition, but also an initial set of commands. So it put the commands on there: start, log output, assess. It was all on there in the pattern. So what we're going to do in this particular video is learn how to create these patterns. So let's create a pattern for this Blue Commander. Now, there's already a pattern in there for the Blue Commander, but we're going to create the pattern from scratch just to illustrate how you would do it. So the patterns get created by this last menu here, a window that's opened by this last menu called the Patterns window. Patterns are entities, just like other types of entities and flames. The pattern window, you edit it the same way as you'd edit any other kind of data set. And we have this pattern in here for the Blue Commander. Now, what we're going to do is create a new data set. And I'm just going to leave it untitled because I'm not going to save it. We're just going to do this just for this tutorial video. And I'm going to go ahead and filter by data set so that I don't see the entities that are in any data set other than the current data set. So here I am, and I'm going to take this particular description, and I'm going to delete it all. I'm going to take the script down here at the bottom. I'm going to delete all of this. So I've got an empty pattern right here, and I'm just going to call this my pattern or my unit. And I'll hit accept. Now it's barking at me because I don't have any script defined, so it's asking, so what are you doing? You're creating this pattern, doesn't have any script. It's not going to be useful, but that's okay. We'll fix that later. So how do I create a pattern, and what is a pattern? So a pattern is an object that can be used to create units. And when it creates the unit, all it's really doing is just automatically generating script. So it automatically generated the script for this Blue Commander, all of this script right here. So people who create units don't have to know anything about script. They never have to see script. It all gets created automatically. So the way that we create a pattern is we simply go in and specify, just type right here in this box whatever script it is that we want to get generated when this pattern is used to create a unit. Now, we don't ever type in here directly, and I can tell you that by design and intentionally, there's no syntax checking that's done on the script in this window. So I could type in anything I want, and that's a legitimate pattern. So, and if I create a unit using this pattern, that's the script that would get generated. Of course, that script is syntactically incorrect, and I would get an invalid unit. But the reason we don't bother with doing script syntax here is because you don't ever type script, or very rarely would you type in script directly. What you do is you create a unit by editing the script that is the kind of unit that you want to get created when you use a pattern. So in our earlier videos, we were manually composing this unit, and we typed in all this stuff and we edited it. We have a unit that can shoot, and we say, oh, I like that unit. I might want to create another unit like that again. Or I'm going to have people in my organization that I'm going to want them to build scenarios that use a unit like this. So I have all the script here. I know it's syntactically correct. I know it works. And I can grab this script, copy it. I'll go over to my patterns and I'll just paste that script right in there. So now I have a pattern, and I can hit accept. Then I can go over here to my window and I can say new unit. And there's my unit. I can double click on that. I'll give it a name, unit 1. It doesn't have any input parameters, and I'll say finish, and I've got a unit. So there's unit 1 right there. So we're not done yet. The reason we're not done is that every time we use this pattern, it's going to place a unit at this particular location. And of course, I don't want every unit that I ever create using that pattern to be placed at that exact location. So patterns give us a way to be able to allow input values to be specified for any part of the script, and have those input values be used in the script instead of a hard-coded value. So we're going to illustrate how to do that now. But before I do it for the coordinate, I'm going to do it for the value of this search range down here. So just because this is a little bit simpler. So we're going to go to our patterns, and we are going to look at the pattern that we just used, and we can see that it has this value right here of search range. So every time I use this pattern, I'm going to get a value of 10. Well, I'm going to put in here a new parameter, and I'm going to call this range, and I'm going to make it a floating point value, and the default value is going to be 10, and I'm going to say the range within which to search for targets. And hit accept. Now it's going to bark at me because I have a parameter defined that I'm not using yet, but I'm getting ready to fix that. And I'm going to put a reference to my parameter here. Whenever you want to put a reference in, you put a question mark, an open curly brace, type in the name of the parameter, and a closing curly brace. And so that means that when this pattern is used to create a unit, whatever value is entered for that will be entered here. So I'm going to say accept. And then I'm going to go use the pattern. So before I do that, let me just delete this window unit right here called unit 1. And then I'll go right click in the window and I'll say new unit, and there's my pattern, and there's my input parameter. So Flames automatically puts that parameter on the screen, and there's a description that I typed in, the range within which to search for targets. So I can specify a different value, and I'll put in 5 instead. And what I probably ought to do in my comment is tell the end user that this is in kilometers, but you can do that. And I'll hit finish. Oops, got to put a name in. Unit 1, hit finish. So now I get a unit, and you can see now the value that I entered is has been entered here for the search range. So I can take any part of my script, any part of it at all, and say I want the user to be able to specify that. So I could specify the value for logging. I could specify the name of a command. I could specify which dictionary I wanted to use. If I had, I could do anything. Another reason why we are so excited and so committed to using script, because it's just so powerful, and this is one of the ways that we use it. So let's learn now how to change this coordinate. We do it in a similar way, but it's slightly different, and this is why I did this second. I don't have to define a value for, or define a parameter for specifying the location. When I want to specify the location, I don't need to define a parameter. That parameter is defined automatically. And the name of that parameter is $loc. So I will go here into this particular portion of my script, and I'm going to replace this with a reference to question mark, open curly brace. The name of the parameter is $LOC, all caps, and then closing brace. And I hit accept. So that parameter named $loc is defined automatically. You don't have to define it. And the value that it's going to use, so let me right click here, is going to be the value that's in this field right here, this location field. That's the value that's going to be placed in there. So I'm going to just call this unit 2 and hit finish. So there's my unit 2, and you can see it's located here. It took the value that I entered and it placed it, substituted it right inside of here. So this allows me now to place my unit anywhere I want. So I can define any input parameter that I want, specify them down here. I can specify whatever kind of data type I want. And you already know about the input editor and different types of data types of input parameters. So you get the full power of the input editor that you can use for users that are specifying inputs for your pattern, for the parameter of your pattern. And and so you can customize this thing anywhere you want. Our overall approach for patterns is that we generally will give the unit some initial set of commands, so you can see that that's true here. They have their locate command, they have a start statement. I have a log output because I know what I want to do here. I know because I specified the composition of the unit. I know exactly what kind of unit I'm going to create. I know the log output command is supported. I know I want to turn that on. And I know I want them to start searching for targets right away. So I went ahead and put the assess command in there. So I get not only a unit that has a certain composition, but I also get an initial set of commands so that unit is oftentimes ready to be used in the scenario right away, right after I create it. And then if my end user wants to make the unit do something more complicated, well, he just goes here to the add commands and he looks at the commands and he starts editing the commands here and adding commands. So I don't try to give every possible command. In fact, I purposely don't put commands in there because I want this pattern to be used in lots of different cases, and then let the end user add additional commands wherever they want. I try to give nice descriptions we try to give nice descriptions to the pattern. So let me turn off this data set filter. So I try to have a fairly decent description for the pattern, and for the input parameters, I try to put in a decent description here, because that's going to allow the end user, when they're looking at the pattern, to see, oh, well, is this the kind of unit that I want? And I go down through here and look at all the different units that are out here, and I can read about them and say, yeah, that's what I want. And I can pick one of those types of units and create it. So that's creating a pattern. All of the scenarios that come with the Flames content, various types of content, the starter content, the tutorial content. All the scenarios include data sets that define patterns. And if you look at the starter scenarios, there's quite a few patterns there. The patterns are not by any means all the possible types of units that can be created with the models that are loaded out of the component libraries, component DLLs that are loaded in the scenario. It's just a representative set. You are free to be able to define different types of patterns for different types of units. And of course, when you're building your own models, you can create patterns for your models and set them up so that your end users can define units that are composed using your models without having to ever look at script, without having to know anything about the models. They just get to right click and pick the pattern and then start editing the unit using commands. So I hope this is helpful. I hope that you will take advantage of using patterns. You'll certainly use them when you're creating scenarios with the Flames example scenarios, but I hope you'll take the time to create them for the people who are using your scenarios that you develop if you're a software developer and the models that you're developing. Thank you for watching, and thank you for using Flames.